lounging, son.
All right, welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name's Ryan.
And I'm Manny.
And today we are going to be talking about Minor Threats by Patton Oswalt, Jordan Blum, Scott Hepburn, Dark Horse Comics. This was a book that Manny had on his picks, I believe, right? For last year.
For the best of last year, yeah.
Best of absolutely. 2022. And I hadn't read it. You had talked, I think, at least a couple issues. Maybe you only talked the last issue. I'm not sure, but you and I had definitely been talking about the series, and I was going to wait for the trade, and then I just was getting antsy about it, so I ordered this single issues. But wow, what a great book. I'm very excited to talk about it. I know this is one of your favorite books, so if you want to kind of take the lead on this one.
Minor Threats is about a bunch of C and D list supervillains in a city where that city's like analog for Batman, named the Insomniac, has gone crazy after his sidekick was murdered by one of his enemies. So the Insomniac's going crazy, trying to hunt down this murderer, like ripping through the city. Not just the Insomniac, but his superhero pals as well, making it almost like a police state for all these villains that really had nothing to do with this one particular crime. So they figure, why not get together, find the guy who killed him, and just deliver him to the Insomniac. So it's a great idea. I actually had the pleasure and opportunity to interview Patton Oswalt about it, actually the whole creative team about it, when it came out. And the pitch, as you can find anywhere online, not only in my interview, had originally started as a pitch to DC for a Batman story, but it never panned out. So Patton reworked it, or I should say the creative team reworked it and took it to Dark Horse and made it its own thing, which I think is actually for the better because it allowed them to create an excellent world. So that's really the gist of it. But like you said, man, I love this book. I was already all in when I heard it was coming out because, like, I love Patton Oswalt, one of my favorite comedians, like one of my favorite celebrities. And anybody that knows him knows that he's a freaking comic book fan. Like he, been seeing at comic shops. He talks about comics all the time. It's not the first time he's actually written for comics. So I was on board, and the premise is amazing, and so I jumped all in.
I love stories like this where it's clearly a riff off of branded characters, right? Like Batman or Superman or whatever.
Yeah, we didn't even get into the details of who the minor threats are, like we'll get that.
Yeah, and so when you told me that especially when you told me that it was meant to, or originally conceived to be a Batman book, I'm like, okay, this is probably something that it would be right up my alley. Because I mean, look, in the history of comics, we've gotten so many things like this where like it's clear, like, oh, this is an analog for Joker, or this is an analog for whoever. What Batman obviously is probably one of the characters people do a lot of, but I think like Invincible, like with the Guardians of the Globe, like Kirkman definitely did his versions of like Green Lantern, Martian, so like I've always enjoyed that because you kind of get to see those characters do stuff that DC won't let you do. And I think that the Insomniac definitely does some shit in here that DC would not have let him do with Batman. So you definitely get I don't want to say necessarily is it a better story, but you're getting a different story. Like the reins are loosened a little bit.
The reins are loosened, and like I think that freedom also allowed them to really open up creatively, and like essentially like this tells a straightforward story, in a world that nobody has seen before because it's completely made up. But it's enough of it has enough recognizable like superhero world tropes in it that any sort of comic book fan is gonna feel like it's a place that's already existed. And to me, that was one of the most impressive feats the creative team did. Like, not only did they execute like a really fucking awesome concept, I don't know if it was the scramble to make it its own thing, but to me, like the world and the city that they're in, what was the name of the city? I forget again. We'll find it in a minute. But it feels like it has a history already,
Yeah, and I love that like the main character is the daughter of a mother-daughter villain. I don't want to say group, but a villain duo, right? Toy Queen and Playtime.
Yeah. So yeah, they're ripping off of I guess the Toyman kind of like most of them are riffs off of Batman villains because like I said, it used to be a pitch. quick sidebar, by the way, if you do Google it, you can find an article that has all the rejected Patton Oswalt pitches he did for Batman comics. So if you guys have time, that's a lot of fun to do it
Oh
on your
yeah,
own.
I
Yeah.
definitely want to check that out. But yeah, like all of the villains, like she's running a bar, right? First of all, the opening page is just a story set in the past, right? She's the narrator of this book, or at least this issue. Is it every issue that she's narrating? I feel like no,
No,
no.
it
It's
changes
each villain.
perspective.
Each villain
Yeah,
we
it
get
changes
different
perspective.
perspective.
Yeah,
But brain tease, right?
brain
Like
tease.
the
Yeah, who's like
Riddler.
the Riddler
So he's the
analog?
Riddler, and he's every character is like that from the design. First of all, Scott Hepburn's art,
Dude,
I
yeah.
really love. I think he's such a great artist. I'm ashamed to say like I can't remember other things, but I mean this it looks familiar, but I can't think of anything that he's done off top. The Stickman. What
Stickman is awesome.
like what a weird like thought for a gimmick of a character, but
Yeah,
it works, you know, like this dude's fucking head is completely scarred. He's got like a normal face as a mask, but then his costume is just black with like literally a stick figure
yeah.
as
He
the
looks kind of
body.
like a Stickman. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's like the Joker of the story. You know, like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
cha-
yeah.
the
Yeah.
kind sort of
And then
chaotic villain.
you have Scalpel, right? Who is like a surgeon for the mob, right? Like she's an interesting character. I don't know what her analog would be. I was trying to think of like
That, to me, like that seems like an entirely new creation, which is, I mean, it's an awesome concept. You know, like
yeah,
this sort of
because not
like
all of them
super
are.
intelligent super villain slash doctor for villains. You know,
Yeah,
I mean,
not
like
all
kind of
of
like the
them.
anti night nurse. You know,
Not all of them are analogs
no,
straight away, and I think that that's what makes it a good book. Because if it was literally just Patton Oswalt and Jordan Bloom doing their Riddler, their Joker, their Catwoman, their this, their that, it
it
would
would
have.
be
I
cute,
don't
but
think.
after one issue, it would be like, you know,
Yeah, I would have got bored after an issue for sure. But yeah, I love this. You know, like obviously we open and the Insomniac has done some crazy shit he's never done before, and then we, you know, eventually we get the reason why, and his fucking partner is fucking
Kid
murdered,
Dusk.
and that's what kind of sets them off. You know, you get like a Superman character, but it's a woman, the Searcher, which I think is that was a weird name to me, but I mean that's whatever, you know. Again, it goes back in time, so I like how it's we're in the present, but we also get like the backstory on all of like the main characters, I would say, and even just the scene with her in jail. Frankie, by the way, is her name, but you
Yeah,
see all
her
these
real
like
name is
these
Frankie.
different characters populated within the prison, and you know, like yes, they're not really focused on in the book, but it's cool to see that they weren't just like throwaway, like, oh, let's just have prisoners there. Like each one of them is designed really well. She gets out of prison, she can't find a job, nobody will give her a chance. And her mom, who's still holding on to the past, you know, doesn't want to kind
Yeah,
of let go of that. And one of her weapons, an important part of her legacy, is gone, and she wants to get it back. And just like seeing that, like this old lady in her living room, she's like in her sweater and her fucking slippers and all this paraphernalia from her villainous career is just surrounding it. I love stuff like that where you can kind of like pick apart little like Easter eggs and stuff like that, and it's, I mean, the level of detail just put into that room is so great. And I like I the one issue, dude, and I knew, I'm like, okay, this is great. Like I knew
yeah, dude.
exactly
Because
what
there's
this.
so many little details. Like I'm reading through it now, and like in the narration when she talks about, because like this issue is told from Frankie's point of view, and she's narrating, and she's like talking about the heroes, and she's like, one time those motherfuckers killed a kaiju in the West End and couldn't be bothered to move the body. So like there's like a kaiju body that's just been rotting in like a part of the city, you know. I love those kind of little details. It's what makes the world feel lived in. There's like
Yeah.
a later on in one of the issues, there's a map of the city. I don't know if you noticed, like there's like a neighborhood that's like fluctuating in time. So like time works differently on this one block. I mean, it doesn't even really figure into much of the story, but it's in there, you know. Again, you could tell that this is something that Patton and Jordan thought of for a long time. And I think like having it become its own thing was probably the best thing that could have happened to it.
Let's be real. If it was Batman, it would have been a one-off, and nothing more would come from
Yeah,
it. So this is a way for them to kind of build off of this and
yeah.
do other stuff. Like like, and yeah, it's called Twilight City, so it's definitely, you can see that it's definitely a riff off of
On Batman, yeah. And
yeah,
you have Gotham, Twilight, yeah.
right. But I, again, like, look, there's so much stuff to unpack just with, like, you could go a million different ways with this book. Like, you can start focusing on the heroes part of
Oh,
this
here
world.
it starts in issue 2, and
Oh,
it's just
okay.
like right here it says it's just like a block circle. It says Broken Time Boulevard, active time loop.
Avoid all these different
Yeah.
places where you just avoid. And yeah, look, like, tying it in with Stickman, like,
Hibernating Elder God, like written on another part of the map,
like Stickman he's responsible for Insomniac's sidekick getting murdered, right? And like,
Yeah,
you see Frankie's mom talk about like how like all the villains were coming up and like she had to walk out. She's like, this dude's going too far, right? Like, we got to get away.
yeah,
And now they're all, the whole impetus for this book is they're going after Stickman because he's making shit hard for villains because he killed Insomniac's sidekick. And I just think it's great that like they're like, man, fuck, you fucked this shit up for us. We gotta take you down, dude, before to show them that we're not with you. What I really loved, and one of my favorite issues, was this second issue where we're talking about brain teasers.
yeah. This one's narrated by him, yeah, and it
Yeah,
tells you like
and just like
his origin.
the way he figures shit out, like the little things, right? Like where it's like 180 pounds,
Yeah,
1.5
he's actually
ounces of
really
whiskey,
smart.
2 hours. Yeah, he's a genius. And then the panel below, as he's like deciphering all the stuff about him, frozen dinner equals abandoned by wife, passed over for promotion, pity gift. And then below it's like rat poison, whiskey, exploits severe emotional depression, induce self-harm. So he's like all of these ways to pick apart his dad who's beating the shit out of him. It's just great. It's such a cool way to show what this dude is capable of, even though he looks like a fucking joke. If you looked at him, like, why would you be terrified of this dude? But he really is smart, and watching him kind of like build this scene to figure out like what happened in the apartment. I love stuff like this, like, and getting to see it
Yeah,
done in there is fantastic. But yeah, this is, look, dude, every page you're seeing a new character, like a Captain
yeah,
America ripoff, right here.
dude. When they introduce like the when they figure out that where one of Stickman's like layers is, and they go to like that sort of iceberg lounge ish place,
Yeah, yeah.
like the Penguins lounge, and like it's got all these villains that she just names quickly. Like you have Automaton, which is like a freaking robot gangster. Like they're just mentioned once, but like all of a sudden, this world is so rich. You're like, man, I would probably wager that you could do stories about all these characters.
That's like my point, is that there's so many
Yeah.
things you could do from this. I don't necessarily think we would see that many spin-offs, but there is the
No.
room for, if you wanted to do like
Yeah.
one shots or whatever,
I
you can
believe
do
that
one
they
shots.
are. I believe that they are going to do more stories, because I mean, this was probably anticipated to be a success, but it really has been a pretty big success for Dark Horse,
How
which I'm
fucked up
glad,
is
dude.
how fucked up is this, dude? Like, they
Let me
wheeled
tell.
they
Yes,
wheeled a
thank you for
sidekick out.
mentioning that, because what I wanted to say that like one of the I love the entire series, but I think issue 2 might be one of my favorites. It takes a weird turn where like it gets really violent, and like and the stakes get really serious in this one. And although the whole thing is still fun, you start to realize like they're gonna tell a really good comic book story here. Like this isn't just playing and riffing around with a fun concept and like trying to come up with clever analogs for characters that we all know and love. Like all bets are off after you see that moment that you just talked about, where you see like Kid Dusk's like body like mangled.
And just wheeled in, and then the Insomniac fucking bursts in, dude, and they're like, oh shit, like they realize like that this was a setup, right? And it's it's a goddamn feeding frenzy, and fucking Insomniac just goes off, dude, just murdering fucking fools and
Yeah, dude, you
snapping
see.
necks and shit. And because like I was, as I was reading it, obviously, like I'm like trying to make connections on what if this happened like at DC, like what if the Joker just like straight up did this. It does make sense. Like, why wouldn't the villains have been like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why would you do
I
that?
mean,
Like,
there's many times that I think that would have called for them to do that to the Joker, where
well,
you're like,
especially when Jason Todd was murdered. Like, but Batman also, I don't think in the comics, I mean, I haven't read everything, but it's not like he went crazy. and just started taking it out on people either. Like
No, no, yeah,
he went the other way. He was like more introverted and like hard on himself.
yeah,
But this makes more sense to me. Like
yeah,
to feel responsible for a young child getting murdered. I mean, because essentially it would be the hero's fault, right? Because you're the one that
yeah.
put
He
that
brought him
costume
into
on
the
them.
world, yeah, in the first
So,
place, correct?
and then I love these two. The little the designs in the back. I think that
Yeah,
that's
I was gonna say I love those too, man. Like I'm seeing how all the design came together. Pigeon Pete, we haven't talked about him yet, but like what a cool character too.
yeah.
Which you think, yeah, it sounds silly, but the ability to like see and hear through all the pigeons in the city is actually pretty powerful when you think about it. Like
You
you're
got
everywhere,
spies everywhere. Yeah. You go into the third issue and you get learn Scalpel's story. Another great
Yes.
one, dude. And I mean, she's got such a simple like type of gimmick, but she just looks like such a bitch, like she just looks like don't fuck with me, kind of her
Yeah,
slicked
they
hair.
they draw her very well. Like she's very snobby, you know?
Like this too, like it's these type of pages, man. Like
Yeah, man. It's just a really amazing work.
I
Really
wonder
amazing
like
layouts, the
how like
coloring, the
how
creature
much
design.
direction is this, given to them, to Scott Hepburn, the artist, by Patton and Jordan. I wonder, dude, because like
There's a
these
time loop
ideas are great. Yeah.
image. I love that one. It's like these little glimpses do so much to add to the story. See, now I'm looking at issue three and I'm like, bro, I mean, issue three
Look
was
at
really
this.
good too.
This is Banana Sundays.
And
I
look at this page here, man. Like,
know.
look at that shit.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's phenomenal.
Scott Hepburn does need to do more work, man. This stuff is amazing.
Yeah, again, I'm surprised it wasn't talked about more, to be honest with you. I mean, I know, well, I paid attention to solicitation, so I definitely saw the solicit for the first issue. I read the description. I was like, oh yeah, I got to check that out. But it wasn't really talked about that much in the shop. When I was there, I wasn't hearing
No,
a lot of people talk about this book, and what a shame, dude. I mean, I know obviously the people that have read it have talked like, glowingly about it, but this
yeah,
is definitely a book that I think more people should be kind of aware of, and that's why like I'm really glad
yeah,
like they
I
decided to
agree,
do
man.
this.
Because a lot of people are cynical when celebrities outside of comics, like all of a sudden, hey, they write a comic or they
We've
create
talked
a
about
comic.
that, yeah.
Yeah, like not everybody is gonna be coming at it from a passionate point of view, like. But with Patton Oswalt, like I said, it's different. Like this is a guy that's been a lifelong comic book fan. Like he was reading comics before he was even a working comedian. He's like one of us. His comics have been a lifelong passion for him. To him, like writing the comic is like its own thing. You know what I mean? Like he's just excited to do it, as excited as anybody would be to write their first comic. And you can tell that he's got a grasp of the medium's history, and he's a fan. You couldn't come up with all these concepts that riff on other characters if you weren't a fan. And there's some deep cuts in here, so it's not like he's just a casual fan either. You could tell that he's a diehard fan, and
Yeah.
just being able to tell such a comic book good, like such a good comic story, shows you that he's read a lot of fucking comics.
Well, yeah, I
Like
mean, if you look at his just from like his Twitter, he would
yeah,
tweet out about like Spencer and Locke by David Pepose, which was a super indie book. Like it was not
yeah.
a very well-known
His
book at the
Twitter
time.
is almost as much about comics as it is about anything else. Like like if it wasn't if it wasn't the name Patton Oswalt, you just think it's just some rando comic fan, like tweeting out stuff, because he'll tweet about Radiant Black all the time. I mean, I started reading Radiant Black because of stuff he was tweeting out about it.
Yeah,
So like
but
he's
him,
he's a fan.
yeah, him and Jordan Bloom together just they created some magic here, dude. Like this whole
Well, they
creative
also
team.
worked on the Modoc TV show for Hulu, which was a lot of fun. It got kind of like lost in the shuffle of all these. I mean, we all know there's a million things streaming all the time, so
Well,
they
I
can
think
keep
it's
up.
also the problem of like Marvel should just keep everything on the same thing instead of
I
having
agree.
something
Yeah,
over
instead of
here,
having
something over
Hulu,
there.
Disney Plus,
It
yeah,
just
yeah. And
doesn't
I
make
think they're
sense.
trying now, but it doesn't make sense. But
Yeah,
but yeah,
but
that Modoc show was a lot of fun, and similar to this, had like a lot of deep cuts, and like at the same time also told like an actual good story. So Patton's also a writer outside of comics, so I think that's evident in this too, because he does bring like a layered sense of storytelling and themes. Like at the end of the day, as much as this is a fun riff, a lot of themes being explode here about abuse and about like parents and their their offspring, and he works all that in without like making it feel heavy handed either. It's just great writing on so many levels, man. Fucking
Yeah.
great book.
And then this scene with like Sideswipe like coming through this like this portal, like I love seeing stuff like that where like they just get cut off, like their body just gets sliced by when the when they're going through the portal and it gets turned off or
Yeah,
whatever. I love seeing shit like that. And like Stickman, it definitely ended in a spot that I did not pick up on. I won't spoil it because this book is still relatively new. I don't want to
yeah.
give away any endings.
But I mean, it gets violent, dude, and that
It
ending
is a
is
really
pretty.
violent book, yeah.
Yeah, like it does get violent. I love the ending too.
Yeah, it is a great ending. I mean, Insomniac, he goes to town, dude. But then
Dude, yeah, I don't want to spoil it,
I
but
know
like
I'm trying not to, but let's just say that Toy Queen gets her fucking she gets
boy does.
her weapon back to the Jack in the Box gun. And you know what? I forgot to mention, we didn't even mention the fact that Frankie has a daughter. So like she's trying to get back
Yes.
in her daughter's life, and that's like you see it in the beginning. It's not really touched upon too much in the middle of the series, but it does cap at the end. And you see that she's just like her mom. She got that like brilliant aspect of her because Frankie is very smart. She was building the weapons that Toy Queen and her were using. And that
Mhm.
was something we glossed over also. So it's kind of cool to see that come full circle and like, she got her daughter back in her life again. And yeah, she's working at this bar, but it ends in a spot that if it doesn't make you want more of this book, I don't know what would, because there's
Yeah.
again so many possibilities. It's one of
Frankie's a
the
great character too, man. Like, like she starts off like, with her life having no control and like, she really has no power at all. And it ends in a very different place for Frankie, which is awesome. Like they work that in to tell. At the end of the day, it's Frankie's story too.
yeah, to me
And
it's
she's a
it's
great
it's all
character.
her story to me. I think
Yeah,
like yeah, it has the other characters be the focus, but I think she's the star of the book, and rightfully so. I think she's a great character, and I
yeah.
can't wait for the next issue. Look at and just let's just talk about the quotes on the cover of each one. Taika Waititi, Judd Apatow, Edgar Wright, and Neil Gaiman.
Exactly. Like when you
Come
have,
on now, dude. Like if
yeah.
you, there's so good.
No, it was great, man. And it's just like
Neil Gaiman
definitely one of my,
saying it reminds him of Astro City, Brat Pack, and Invictopia.
I definitely see where the Astro City, that's a pretty good comparison.
Yeah,
Although, I mean, I love Astro City. Like, I think this was better for me. Like, this is more in line with
your sensibilities. Yeah, I can see that.
yeah.
I still think that. I mean, yeah, the comparisons are kind of spot on. I would say like it is a little bit of a mix of all that stuff kind of rolled into one. But it was a great book. I definitely think everybody that's if you're listening or watching this, you got to go pick it up. I think
I mean, well written, beautifully drawn. I mean, it to me, this is going to be a classic.
yeah,
And I definitely think that anyone who hasn't read it should pick up the trade and own it because it's an immediate classic, man.
yeah. I think as of I mean, it's May when we're recording this, so I think next month is when the trade drops. I think it's definitely
Yeah,
pretty sure it's June. But yeah, go pick it up. It's a great book. You won't be sorry if that's your kind of thing. Like I just said, Astro City, Brat
nice
Pack,
four
and
issues too, man. I love 4 issue miniseries. Like you can get a lot. Like
not too
you get
short, not too long. Yeah,
not too long. You get and if you do get the trade, this is something you'll probably read in one sitting, man, because it does have like a very sort of nicely clipped narrative and like it reads really well, man.
yeah,
Great
great,
book, man. I
great
can't
book.
say anymore. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was awesome.
yeah, dude. So go pick up the book. Also, make sure you guys follow us. Our links are down below. Manny's Comic Lounge, and hit the subscribe button, the bell icon, so you're notified every time a new vid goes up. And on that note, we're out.